70 pictures. I don't want to go hunting for those, so that's, they're all the same. Exhibits.
I never get started this quickly.
You cleared part of your docket, or?
Uh-huh.
It's because you've done this before, so others keep their docket.
Everyone's just going to continue anything.
Not Jesse.
I know. That's one plea I had all week.
All rise.
Everyone can have a seat. You all have a good evening last night? Good, good, good. Any further witnesses on behalf of the state of Ohio?
We would call Josh Durst to the stand. Good morning, folks.
Morning.
There's a little maze you have to walk around here. Keep going, it's all the way around. I should put yellow tape there. Can you raise your right hand? You solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury your testimony in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Have a seat, pull yourself up close to the microphone, and then you may inquire.
Thanks, Judge.
Thank you, Judge. Good morning. Can you tell this jury who you are and what you do for a living?
Yes, my name's Joshua Durst. I am a special agent with the Ohio Bureau of Criminal Investigation.
And how long have you been a special agent with BCI?
Since 2010.
Okay. Did you have any law enforcement experience prior to that?
Yes.
What was that?
Previous to my time with BCI, I was a special agent with the Attorney General's Healthcare Fraud Unit. Previous to that, I was a patrolman with the Ohio University Police Department. I did that job for 6 years. Previous to that, I was a reserve deputy sheriff from Muskingum County Sheriff's Office.
Okay. And what specifically do you do since 2010 with BCI?
I am assigned to the crime scene unit in the Southern District of Ohio.
What's that mean?
BCI provides crime scene services to any law enforcement agency. It's free of charge, available any day of the week, any day of the year. We, at the request of law enforcement, we will go and process major crime scenes, felony crime scenes, typically involving homicides, question deaths, officer-involved critical incidents. We process the scene, we work with the agency, and assist them with evidence submission at times and prepare reports and findings, testify in court.
You also act at the request of, for instance, our office, prosecuting attorney's offices.
Yes.
And do you do that kind of stuff for police agencies here in Franklin County?
Yes.
In 2018, were you doing that kind of stuff for police agencies in Franklin County?
I was, yes.
Was it a matter of routine, or was it at request?
It's at request only.
Okay. Back in 18, we've talked about how Columbus Police generally investigated Columbus Police shootings. Is that still the situation here, or do you guys get involved early?
Columbus Police at this point generally refers all their officer-involved shootings to BCI for investigation.
Okay. But back in 18, it was at request only?
Correct.
What specifically, when you say you investigate these crime scenes and do things like that, what specifically do you do?
Well, we process a crime scene. I guess are you asking the general process of? Okay. So when we encounter a crime scene, we will be briefed by the detectives or the officers about the situation and the incident. We'll do an initial walkthrough. We'll make some observations. We'll photograph very thoroughly the entire crime scene. We will start to search and identify evidence. We will collect evidence. We have a lot of different methods and techniques of how we find evidence. Some are obvious, some are not so obvious. We will package that evidence. We will coordinate with the agency Some evidence needs to go to our laboratory for testing. Other evidence does not need to. So we'll help facilitate that process. Again, we will render a written report about our efforts at the scene. And again, we assist the agency through this process of dealing with their investigation.
Do you have any specialized education or training that helps you with this job?
I do, yes.
What is that?
So I have an associate's degree and a bachelor's degree in criminal justice, a master's degree in public administration. I'm a graduate of the National Forensic Academy, which is a 10-week residency program at the University of Tennessee. I'm a certified crime scene analyst as well as a certified bloodstain pattern analyst through the International Association of Identification. I've received certificates from the Ohio Peace Officer Training Council as a master evidence technician as well as a master criminal investigator. I'm a certified firearms instructor. I have roughly 1,500 hours of advanced training. 900 of that is specific to crime scene investigation.
And does all of that help you in cases like this?
Yes.
What do you recall was your first involvement with the case against, or the case involving, Andrew Mitchell and Donna Castleberry?
My supervisor at the time and I were requested by the Columbus Division of Police to take a look at the Mitsubishi Galant that was involved in this case. The specific request was to determine if our office could do any shooting incident reconstruction or bloodstain pattern analysis just with the vehicle itself.
So you weren't asked to do a full-blown investigation by Columbus Police?
No.
Okay. And did you do that?
No, we did not.
Why not?
Again, my supervisor at the time and we took a look at the vehicle, really from the outside. The vehicle had already been thoroughly processed and examined by the Columbus Division of Police, and that very often hampers the ability to do any type of bloodstain reconstruction or shooting incident reconstruction. So they had searched, they had collected evidence, moved things around in the normal course of processing a vehicle, and really that prevented us from being able to make any conclusions about bloodstains or reconstruction work.
And correct me if I'm wrong, was that back in September of 18?
That's correct.
Okay. Were you subsequently asked to take another look at this?
I was.
And who asked you to do that?
The prosecutor's office at the time, along with the Columbus Division of Police, made a second request to my office.
And do you remember when that was?
I believe that was in October of 2018.
Okay. And were there any results of that request that you were able to come up with?
Yes. So the request itself at that time became they wanted me to take a look at the case, the work that was done from strictly an evidence standpoint and an evidence processing standpoint. And they wanted to ensure that everything that could be done was in fact done by the Division of Police. So they asked me to do a case review on this incident.
And did you do that?
I did.
Were you asked to make factual determinations in this case?
No.
Were you asked strictly to look at the evidence and make sure that was all processed correctly?
That's correct.
Okay. Did you collect evidence as a result of this investigation?
When I examined the Mitsubishi Galant, yes, there was a piece of evidence that I did collect out of the vehicle.
Okay, and what was that?
There was a piece of the front driver's seat that contained a bullet entry hole and a bullet exit hole. There was some potential vaporous lead and soot that comes out the end of the barrel that we sometimes see with a closer distance shot. I cut that material from the seat and entered it into the evidence room at the Columbus Division of Police.
And I'm not sure if you know, but these folks here have been down to the impound lot to look at that car.
Okay.
Is it fair to say that that car today, based on some of the things you did, as well as Columbus Police, looks different than it would have in August of 2018?
I can only assume it would, yes. It's been processed.
That vaporous gas, lead that you were talking about, do we hear that commonly referred to as stippling?
Stippling is a little different. That is the unburnt powder that comes out the end of the barrel that sometimes we'll see on a target surface, or if it's on somebody's skin, it's called tattooing. It's a little different than vaporous lead, though.
Okay. Did you collect or review or investigate or look at anything that Columbus Police had already collected?
Yes, document-wise and photograph-wise. There was some clothing that I also looked at, Ms. Castleberry's clothing as well as Detective Mitchell's clothing.
Let me approach the witness.
Hey.
I'm gonna show you what's been marked, Special Agent Durst's State's Exhibit D1 through D68. And I don't need you to go through these one by one. You generally look through those and tell us if you recognize what those are.
Sorry, it's a lot of pictures. Yes, these are all photographs that I took during my examinations.
Do those appear to be fair and accurate representations of this evidence as you saw it when you photographed it?
Yes,
Will you let me know if something strikes you as odd?
yes.
I'm not gonna go through all 68. Okay, if I publish. Melissa, please. Judge, if I may publish some?
Yes, you may.
Okay. I want to show you, first of all, what's been marked State's Exhibit D1.
You want the white lights down?
Probably going to need to. Sorry. I guess if they need. Can you tell me what State's Exhibit D1 is?
This is one of the boxes that contain the clothing that I examined.
Okay. And I'm going to show you State's Exhibit D6.
Yes, this is obviously this is a knife that was found in one of the boxes.
Do you know if this is the knife that was used in this incident or not?
I do not believe it is. I believe this was in the contents of Detective Mitchell's clothing.
State's Exhibit D11.
It's a pair of underwear that was found in, among Detective Mitchell's clothing.
State's D13.
This would be the shirt, t-shirt he was wearing.
State's Exhibit D23.
This was the boots that was found in the box that he was wearing.
State's Exhibit D35.
This is the pair of jeans and belt that was in the box.
State's Exhibit D41.
Another box that contained clothing that I looked at.
State's Exhibit D46.
This was the sandals that was in the box that contained the clothing of Ms. Castleberry.
D50.
This was a portion of the dress that had been cut out.
Is there anything of significance in that photograph?
Difficult to tell in that it looks like it's saturated with something. I don't recall why this was cut out. I don't know if this was a result of the medics during medical intervention.
But this is how you got it.
Yeah, this is how I received it. This is how it was packaged in the box.
D51. It's hard to see.
Yeah, it's just a closer photograph of that.
Okay, if
That material.
may I approach the witness again?
You may.
Because it's awful dark compared. I'm going to show you D51 again. Can you tell us if there's anything significant in that picture?
Yeah, it's more clear in this photograph. It does appear that there's a hole in the center of that material.
And I'm putting D51 back up. If I may approach again, sorry, Judge. I'm going to give you a laser pointer.
Sure.
That will help you point to some things. You mentioned that there's a hole. Can you point out that to us?
Okay, how do you activate the laser?
Just should be,
The red button?
yeah, the red button.
All right. It would be located approximately there.
Okay. And you recognize what kind of hole that looks to be?
Difficult to say. In this situation, I would anticipate it being a bullet hole. Again, without testing, chemical testing, you can't say that conclusively.
But you reviewed quite a few items in this case, right?
Yes.
And you know she was shot.
Correct.
So would this be consistent with a bullet hole?
It would be.
Okay. D60.
So this was the dress that was in the box of her clothing.
And D61.
These are closer photographs of what would be considered suspected bullet holes in the dress.
Okay. What is that marker on there? Looks like a ruler of some sort.
It's just a photographic scale to give reference to so you can tell how the size of the hole itself.
Okay. And that you put that there?
Yes.
Is that standard?
Yes.
And D68. What's the purpose of the ruler and the things there?
Again, just to show some reference and distance as far as where these holes were located on the dress. They're just scales for reference.
Okay. Based upon the clothing in this D series that you saw, did you see anything or find anything here at this point that made you think that something's gone wrong or I need to go look for new evidence or anything like that?
No.
This seemed to be fairly standard?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to show you, if I may approach, what's been marked States Exhibit C 1 through 47. Same thing, you just quickly look at it.
Sure.
Tell us if you know what those are.
Okay. Yes, these are photographs that I took of the Mitsubishi Galant when I did my examination.
And does this C series seem to be a fair and accurate representation of the Galant as you saw it when you analyzed
Yes.
it? Shows States Exhibit C2. What are we looking at there?
This is the driver's side of the vehicle.
Okay. Where is this car physically when you're taking this picture?
This is at the secured impound at the Columbus Division of Police.
So this is still what they call the barn down there?
Yeah, the barn, yes.
Okay. States Exhibit C7, recognize that?
Yes, this is the front driver's seat of the vehicle.
Okay. Is that part missing because, that fabric part missing because of you, or was that for another lab report?
No, these photographs were taken prior to anything that I had done.
Okay. Would this have been about the first thing you did?
On processing the vehicle? Yeah, always photographs, yes.
Okay. I'm going to show you I'm going to back up just briefly and show you States Exhibit C4. Does that show any part of this vehicle that you later took off of it?
Yes, so the side, can I use my laser pointer again?
Yes,
Okay,
absolutely.
it helps. This area right here on the front driver's seat, That's the area that I cut out that contained that entrance and exit bullet hole that contained the vaporous lead. That's the area where I cut out.
I'll show you State's Exhibit C10. You recognize that?
Yes, this is a bullet hole in the roof on the interior side. This would be above the rear passenger seat.
Show you State C15.
This is the rear driver's side tire.
And that tire appears to be flat, is that correct?
Yes.
And do you know how that tire became flat?
Columbus Division of Police recovered a bullet from inside of this vehicle. So my belief would be that to recover that bullet, they had to cut the tire open to retrieve the bullet itself.
I want to show you what's been marked State's Exhibit C24. You recognize that?
Yes, this is a bullet hole. There was an armrest in the rear seat that flipped up, so in between the driver and passenger side on the rear seat. This is a bullet hole that was located on that material, on that armrest.
And again, is this ruler, what do you call this thing? I keep calling it.
These are just scales, the L scales.
The scale, is that you put that there?
Correct. Yes, I did.
State's Exhibit C30.
This is a bullet hole on the rear seat on the driver's side.
Is this the one that eventually went into that tire?
Correct. This is the projectile that entered the seat and then entered the tire ultimately.
C32.
That's a photograph of that rear driver's side wheel well, and you can see there's a on the wheel well there's what would be an exit bullet hole.
And is this the one coming from the photograph we just saw
Yes.
and eventually going into the tire there that we see?
Yes.
And we saw Columbus Police had done some work with dowel rods. Did you do that as well?
Yes.
Okay. I'll show you State's Exhibit C34. What are we looking at here?
So very often in shooting reconstruction, so we can establish and visually show the flight path. These are trajectory rods or flight path rods. So they insert these into the bullet holes or between the bullet holes to illustrate the approximate flight path of that projectile.
And so these were all placed by you?
These flight path rods in particular were done during my examination.
Did you prepare a written report for our office and or the Columbus Police based upon specifically what you've talked about here as well as some further work with the trajectories on these bullets?
Yes, I did.
I want to approach you and show you what's been marked State's Exhibits A1 through 8. You recognize those?
Yes. These are screenshots from the 3D laser scanner that I use to document the flight paths within the Mitsubishi Galant.
Okay, I'm going to show what's been marked as State's Exhibit A1. To me, this looks like an X-ray, but I'm told it's not. What is this?
It's not. So we sometimes utilize a device called a 3D laser scanner. It's a Faro three-dimensional laser scanner. What it does is it measures millions of points in a matter of just a few minutes. So what you're seeing here is actually not a photograph, it's not an X-ray, this is actual data. So anything you see on there we can measure in between. What it also assists us in doing is further illustrating shot trajectories. So I can put 2 reference spheres on those trajectory rods that you saw in the previous photograph, and it'll establish a longer trajectory line for us. The other thing that's nice is that you can somewhat see through, but you can also do things like cut the car in half and you can see half the car. There's some photos you'll see, screenshots you'll see where I've taken the roof off. So you can truly see down into the top of the car. It doesn't change the data, it doesn't change the situation, it just allows us to look at it from a different perspective.
And speaking of which, I'll show you what's been marked States Exhibit A2.
So again, this is a top-down view of that specific trajectory line, but now we can see it from the top down. I've taken the roof off and you can truly see kind of the interior of the vehicle and what that trajectory line represents.
So A1 and A2 are the same trajectory?
Can I look at A1 again, please, just to ensure?
Here's A1.
Okay. Yeah, so I believe this is flight path 2.
Okay.
But yeah.
Okay.
Yes, this is the same trajectory.
So basically, what are you trying to show with these different ones? Is one horizontal and one vertical? Is that what we're showing?
Correct. Yes. Yep.
So this would be what?
This is showing the vertical component of that trajectory line. Is it up or is it down, essentially?
And then this, which is the same trajectory line you said, A2,
Yep.
is showing what?
This allows us to look at the horizontal component of that trajectory line. So is it left, is it right?
In the report that you provided to our office, did you put these together to make it a little easier to look at?
I did, yes.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as States Exhibit A9. The report with cover letter, could you tell us if you recognize this?
Yes.
What is it?
So this is the cover letter that I drafted to the Division of Police and the Prosecutor's Office, as well as my investigative findings, or I guess my case review findings.
I want to show you, let's go through these flight plans, and what I'm going to do is use your illustrations, because frankly, they're, I believe, easier to understand. When you looked at these, it looks like you call them flight paths, is that right?
Yes.
So in your report, we have 4 flight paths,
Yes.
okay? Are you aware of there being actually 2 more shots?
Yes.
Do you know why we don't have flight paths for those 2 shots?
I believe she sustained 2 penetrating gunshot wounds, and those were not associated with any particular flight path.
When you say penetrating, you mean not exiting?
Correct. Penetrating means it goes in, doesn't come out. A perforating means it goes in and exits.
So she had 2 where the bullet was still in her body?
Yes.
Why can't you do a flight path on that?
There was did not strike any intermediate objects in between the muzzle of the weapon and her. So we only have 4 distinct flight paths.
And you don't know where she was in that vehicle when she took those bullets, right? Specifically.
Specifically, no.
Let's look at flight path number 1. Also should note, you indicate a couple, I want to make sure, a couple things. You indicate this is called BE1. What do you mean by BE?
BE stands for ballistic event. It's just a very generic term that we use. It could be an entrance bullet hole, an exit bullet hole. It could be a ricochet. It could be a bullet strike. So ballistic event is just a very generic term for something that happens when a bullet hits something.
I'm putting up here States Exhibit A9, page 3 of 11. Do these appear to be the same or generated from the same photographs, scans that you looked at in A1 through 8?
Yes, the screenshots were embedded into the report when I wrote
So
it.
these are just embedded into your report?
Yeah.
Okay. You've labeled this flight path 1. Tell us what we're looking at here.
So flight path 1 is if you remember where the material was that I cut off of that front driver's seat, there was an entrance and an exit bullet hole. Again, I insert a trajectory rod between those 2 points, put the spheres on there, and then I can do something called there's forward and back extrapolation, which is just a fancy term for meaning we can follow the bullet forward to its destination, or we can trace it back to its origin. So this allows me to forward extrapolate that trajectory, or that line. This is flight path 1. This is a perforating bullet hole through the front driver's seat. As you can see, it's going significantly downward, and it's traveling. Everything in my report I referenced from if you were sitting in the driver's seat. So imagine to your left or to your right as you're sitting in the driver's seat. So this trajectory, this projectile is traveling slightly from left to right or driver's side to passenger side, but also significantly downward.
Okay. And are you aware of whether a actual spent projectile was recovered anywhere in the vicinity that would be the end part of this path?
There was a projectile recovered from the rear seat, but I can't say that it was I can't connect that projectile with this flight path conclusively.
In fact, can you connect any of them conclusively?
Based upon where they're recovered, we can make some very strong assumptions.
Okay, and we'll get to those. Now, when you say extrapolate forward, how far back can you extrapolate this?
This one, if you back extrapolated from that front seat, it would terminate into the top of the roof. Well, obviously, there wasn't a shooter. It didn't come through the roof, so nobody was on the outside of the vehicle. And, the gun can only go so far up. So the back extrapolation wasn't necessarily what I was interested in this.
Okay.
Was the forward.
From this, are you able to tell generally where people are standing, what their physical positions are of somebody who might have shot this firearm?
This would be consistent with, we generally don't talk about where people are, but rather where the gun was. Because people can be in a lot of different places in relationship to the gun. The muzzle of this weapon would have been consistent with that being in the front driver's seat area.
And is this the ballistic event where you found soot?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. And you took photographs, and we've already looked at those?
Yes.
Okay. We'll look at flight path 2 and ballistic event 2.
Sure.
What are we looking at?
This would be the bullet hole that was in the headliner above the rear passenger side seat. So this perforates or passes through the roof. The flight path associated with this, as you can see, is significantly upward. And again, it's traveling from left to right or driver's side to passenger side.
Okay. And again, where can you make any determination of where the muzzle of that firearm would have been?
Okay, now this is one I can back extrapolate.
Okay.
So I take it back toward where it would essentially terminate out into the seat or below the steering wheel. And again, this would be consistent with the muzzle being discharged or the gun being discharged in the area of the front driver's seat.
Anything about flight path 1 or 2 that's significant that we've missed?
No, I don't believe so.
Let's go to flight path 3 and ballistic event 3. Can you tell us what we're looking at here?
Sure. This is if you recall, the armrest in the rear seat. There was a hole there. So again, inserting the trajectory rod, doing this process, we establish a flight path. Again, this one is traveling downward, and this one is traveling from left to right, or again, driver's side to passenger side. And there was this projectile actually perforates the armrest, the seat material, the metal material between the seat and the trunk. And so there's an exit hole in that metal material in the trunk. And there was a projectile, I believe, recovered by the Columbus Division of Police in like a Tupperware container that was in the trunk.
And does that spent projectile match fairly consistency with this flight path?
That would be consistent with this flight path, yes.
And was there any soot or gaseous marks made anywhere from this trajectory that you're aware of?
No, there was not.
Can you tell where the muzzle of the firearm would have been in this projectile?
Back extrapolating this trajectory line puts it right around the headrest area. So again, the general area is the front driver's seat, but again, it does terminate out right there around the headrest. So in that vicinity of the front driver's seat. Is
there a corresponding hole in the headrest?
There is not.
So does that tell you anything about whether the firearm was behind the headrest or in front of the headrest?
Absent of any bullet holes in between that area, yeah, the muzzle of the weapon has to be behind, or yeah, I guess behind the headrest itself.
Do you know exactly where the muzzle of this firearm is?
No, we can't determine that on these, in this case, on these trajectory lines.
Okay. Anything else about flight path 3?
No.
I'll look at flight path 4, which is page 6 of 11 of your report, and ballistic event 4. What are we looking at here?
So this is the one associated with the hole in the tire, the hole in the wheel well. It is traveling significantly downward again, this time traveling from right to left. So driver's side, or excuse me, from passenger side to driver's side, right to left.
Okay. And is there any soot or gas left behind, gas marks left behind on this one?
No, no.
And again, from the, going back as far as you can you make any determinations of where the muzzle would have been when this was fired?
This one could be, it does, if you back extrapolate, it's going to go into the roof again. Obviously, it has to be forward of the roof. This one's a little more difficult. This really could be front driver's seat or front passenger seat. It's difficult to tell.
And let me ask you this, do you know in any of these, whether it's this case or any, unless somebody's telling you or you've got a clear video or something, do you generally know if they're using their right hand or their left hand or anything like that?
No,
And can folks change hands and therefore change angles?
of course, yes.
But you don't know, you can't make that kind of determination from this physical evidence?
No.
Okay. The bullet flight paths, the 4 of these that you analyzed, do they all appear to be coming from inside the vehicle?
Yes, all of them were from inside of the vehicle.
Okay. Now, also in your report, you mentioned you did look at some of her clothing, I believe, in page 8 of 11.
Yes.
We're looking at, what are we looking at here?
This is the front and the back of the dress. Again, just with the L scales documenting the suspected bullet holes in her dress.
And these are some, we've already seen the pictures of these as well, right?
Correct, yes.
And then your next thing that you looked at, I believe, was Mr. Mitchell's firearm. Is that correct?
Yes.
And what's the purposes of these photos in this examination?
Again, looking for anything unusual, any peculiarities as in regard to evidence. That was what I was asked to do. As I looked through Columbus Police's crime scene search unit's photographs, I noticed Detective Mitchell's gun was malfunctioned. And this struck my curiosity. This was a malfunction that I had not personally encountered, this type of a malfunction. So I wanted to do some more research and talk to some other experts to see if it had any relevance at all, or see if we could resolve how and why this gun would have malfunctioned the way it did.
Did you come up with anything?
No.
Okay. But can you tell it malfunctioned?
Yes, it's an unusual malfunction. Without going into a lot of detail, it's not the normal malfunction that I've encountered. I deal with a lot of guns that jam during shooting incidents. This is not one I've seen before.
Okay. But let me ask you this in general, without knowing how it happened, would it be possible to fire this weapon without clearing that jam?
No, this gun is inoperable the way it is.
Okay. Now, among the things that you looked at when making this report, you looked at quite a number of things. Did you also look at a video obtained from the scene?
Yes, when I did the original case review, I watched surveillance footage of the incident.
And did you hear an audio from that as well?
I did.
Did you have an opportunity prior to this report to watch those things synced up?
Prior to this report, no.
So when you watch that video, you don't know what order things happen or anything like that?
Could you rephrase that?
As far as number of shots, when they were shot, which shots were first, any of that kind of stuff?
No, not based upon the video.
Or the audio?
The order of shots?
Yeah.
No, no.
In your experience as a law enforcement officer, have you had any opportunities to deal with arrests involving prostitutes and things like that?
Are you asking if I've arrested people?
Yeah.
No, I've not arrested anybody for prostitution.
Okay, and so would you be able to give us any insight on how an arrest for prostitutions go?
No.
Okay. I guess what I want to know is, I'm trying to get what you didn't do, what, you know, as well as what you did, what you weren't asked to do. Were you asked to make any determinations whatsoever factually about who shot, when they shot, where the people were, that kind of thing?
No, again, my request was just to look at evidence and crime scene processing to see if there's anything else that needed to be done.
Were you asked to analyze this case in any way, shape, or form regarding whether a use of force would be appropriate in this situation?
No.
When you write your cover letter, there's a sentence here about, and you reviewed Andy Mitchell's statement, right? His written statement?
Yes.
In part of this. It says, you found no discrepancies between the physical evidence and the statement of Detective Mitchell. What's that mean?
There was nothing in the video, the audio, or the statement that led me to believe that there was any other evidence we should be looking for. I mean, I'm looking for a host of things. Is there another object another weapon we should be looking for? Is there some discrepancies with the number of shots or things like that? So I'm basing all of the testimonial and the visual evidence against the physical evidence. And if there's anything else we need to be looking for.
So is your focus only on finding physical evidence?
Yes, in this case, yes.
When you write that sentence, are you making any comment about the value of his statement as it relates to whether the use of force was proper or any of the factual things that happened inside that car?
No, that's not what I was asked to do.
So just you're comparing those statements and all this other evidence to see if it points toward other physical evidence?
Yes, yes,
And that's the extent of what you were asked to do?
yes,
And that's what you did?
correct.
Okay. I have nothing further.
Any cross-examination?
May I proceed, Your Honor?
May?
Yep.
I'm sorry, may I proceed, Your Honor?
Yes, you may.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Agent Hurst. My
Morning.
name is Mark Collins. How are you today?
I'm good, how are you?
Thank you so much for being here today.
Yep.
Myself and Ms. Stevens represent Andy Mitchell. If at any time I go too fast, please let me know, okay?
Okay,
Agent Hurst, I want to pick up where Mr. Cable left off, correct?
okay.
I'm going to indicate that, in fact, you weren't at the scene collecting evidence, correct?
No, I was not.
But you know how important it is to collect evidence as soon as possible at the scene, correct?
Yes,
Why so, Agent Hurst?
evidence we can lose evidence, it can be destroyed, it certainly can change if it's not collected in a reasonable amount of time.
And when you say evidence, you're looking at physical objects, physical things of nature, correct? That may have importance to a case, may not, correct?
Yes.
At the scene, you don't know what will be important or what isn't, correct?
Not always, yeah. Not always correct. We don't always know what's important.
And then, as part of your investigative duties, you take physical evidence and you compare them to testimonial evidence, so to speak, correct?
At times we can. Yeah.
At times you can. And this time, you took my client's written statement, correct? And you compared it to the physical evidence that you analyzed, correct?
Yes.
And your exact words were, in this situation, I have found no discrepancies or conflicts between the items of physical evidence and the statement of Detective Mitchell regarding what occurred during the incident. Those are your words, correct?
Yes.
So you took all the physical evidence that you reviewed, all the pictures, all the dowels, all the angles, all the things looked at in the car, correct?
Yes.
All the information, all the clothing, the knife, my client's clothing, all of that stuff. And as part of your duties, you compared that to my client's written statement, correct?
It was compared, yes.
And you told the ladies and gentlemen jury that they were consistent. There was nothing between his statement and the physical evidence that gave you any concern or inconsistencies, correct?
That's correct.
Now, let's talk about a little bit in terms of the report, okay? You were involved initially, correct?
Correct.
It took about a month till you got involved, correct?
Yes.
And I think you initially met in late September of 2018 with the parties from the critical incident response team, correct?
Yes.
And in that situation, they asked you to do some things, correct?
Yes.
And you said, hey, I can't do them because the car's already been moved, it's already been processed, it would be useless for me to do blood splatter, correct?
Right.
It would be useless for me to do an accident or a shooting reconstruction, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And that's because everything had already been moved. So in this case, there was no blood splatter, correct? Analysis done.
That's correct.
CSSU for CPD didn't do any blood splatter analysis, correct?
That's correct.
The FBI, who was involved in the case, didn't do any blood splatter analysis, correct?
I'm not aware of that.
You do blood splatter analysis, correct?
Yes.
Tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury why blood splatter analysis can be important.
Blood spatter analysis can answer several questions for us. It can sequence events. It can tell us how and where somebody was injured. If it's a bloodletting event, sometimes it can lead to the instrument or the weapon that was used. It can tell us things like that. So it's not something we use often. If we can answer that investigative question by other means, we will. But we will use bloodstain analysis to answer investigative questions related to the case.
Where somebody might have been, what blood it is, how it gets onto a surface, correct?
Yes.
All those types of things are used techniques that you do to investigate, to try to answer some questions, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and that wasn't done in this case?
It wasn't possible to be done.
No, by you. It wasn't possible by you because they had already processed the car, correct?
I looked at what was left in the vehicle, and I don't know that bloodstain analysis done by anybody would have answered any questions in this case.
That wasn't my question, Agent Durst. My question was bloodstain analysis done by Columbus Police Department, CSSU?
No.
Was it done by the FBI?
I don't know what the FBI did.
Okay. Okay, so you don't know. So, but in this situation, you would agree with me that analysis wasn't done?
It was not done by me or Columbus Division of Police.
Okay. Now, after about another 3 to 4 weeks, you get a call from the prosecutor's office, and they want you to review some more things, correct?
Yes.
I think that call was on August 31st, if I remember correctly, right? Excuse me, October 31st.
Yes, that's correct.
You asked for a bunch of information from them at that time, correct?
Yes.
You said, hey, I need to see everything that you have, correct?
Yes.
And you received the first batch on November 15th of 2018, correct?
Correct.
The second batch on November 18th of 2018, correct?
Without reviewing my report, I can't give you the exact dates, but that sounds correct.
They come from your reports.
Okay.
I'm not trying to
Fair
trick
enough.
or anything, Agent Durst. And you received the third group on November 29th, correct?
Sounds correct, yes.
Okay. Now, I want to talk about your report, and I appreciate the simplicity in how you put that, and I want to just go over things. First and foremost, before we get into the specific bullet events or flight paths, you're not telling, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, that that was the order of the shots there, or the flight paths, correct?
Not at all, no.
You have no idea which shot occurred first, second, third, fourth, fifth, or sixth?
Correct, I have
You
no
ha-
idea.
I'm sorry.
No idea.
You have no idea where the gun was in each of those situations, correct?
Where the gun was at the shot, when the shot was fired?
It's a poorly asked question. You have no idea where the, we'll get to it, where the actual gun would have been in relation to some of the flight paths, correct?
It's going to be along that trajectory line, the approximate trajectory line.
On that trajectory line, though, it can be in multiple places.
That is correct,
It
yes.
can be at the highest level, right?
Yeah,
It could be in the middle of it, correct?
yes,
It could be closer, correct?
that's correct.
So the gun, in theory, could be aimed up at the top of the back passenger right seat, could be anywhere from there all the way down, correct?
That is correct, yes.
So that's what I mean. You can't say with any certainty where the actual gun was on some of these things.
Not in this case, no.
Okay. Now, let's go, may I approach a witness here?
You may.
Okay. I'm gonna have to try to juggle a little bit here, sir. I'm gonna put this one up on, Melissa. And this was, I'm sorry, State's Exhibit A9, okay? And that's flight path 1, okay? Now, with flight path 1, may I approach a witness, Your Honor? Can you see it on your screen?
Yeah, I can see it fine, yeah.
And you told the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Mr. Cable, that you did everything as though the driver's seat, correct?
Meaning, yeah, the perspective is if you were sitting in the front driver's seat, yes.
Okay.
Like left and right would be as you're sitting at the steering wheel.
So for this hypothetical, or I mean, for this analysis, I'm in the driver's seat, you're in the passenger seat.
Okay,
Okay? So flight path 1, you indicate that's the one within the upholstery, correct?
this is the one in the front driver's seat material, yeah, that's heading,
Correct.
yeah.
So
down.
that would be right behind mine, correct?
Correct.
Now, in that, you can't tell where the gun was in relation to the back of the headrest, correct?
It has to be forward of the material.
On the other side of it.
It has to be,
Perfect.
it has to be up here.
On that side.
Yep. has to
So
be
if
up
I'm in the driver's seat, it has to be behind me,
Yeah.
correct?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Now, that had some vapor, soot, things of that
Vapor
nature
sled,
on that,
yes.
correct? So that means that the gun at that point in time was probably somewhere between 0 and 18 inches away from that.
I don't talk about distances unless I can do experiments, so.
And you didn't do an experiment in this situation?
No.
Okay, I appreciate the
Yeah,
candor.
yeah.
Now, in that situation, once the bullet goes through, you don't know where it goes from that, correct?
Once it perforates the seat,
Correct.
are you talking about this specific shot, or are you talking
In
about
general,
generalities?
in general.
Absolutely, you can. If you have another bullet hole, then you can connect dots.
And there's no other bullet hole in this situation?
There is not in this situation.
So in this situation, the bullet could have went right. We know it started this way, correct? Downward.
Yes,
And it could go left, it could go straight, it could go right. Because there's no corresponding bullet hole there.
that's correct.
Okay, so you have no idea where that one went,
No,
correct?
no.
Okay. And I think you said, in fact, you did all your analysis on these 4 flight paths on the assumption that the seat was straight up, correct?
Yes.
Meaning
Well, as it was how I found it.
Correct. But that doesn't mean that's how it was on August 23rd.
That is, right, and that's detailed in the
2018.
report.
So but your analysis was it was a straight seat in the driver's seat. Correct?
I don't understand what you're saying.
If point to the driver's seat in there with the laser pointer.
Okay.
In your analysis for your angles, you made the assumption that the seat was on August 23rd, 2018, how you found it then.
It's not an assumption. This is how it was when I found it. And there's plenty of caveats in this to say, these are just illustrations. This is not shooting reconstruction.
Absolutely.
Okay, but we can't talk about,
But if the seat was back a little bit more on August 23rd, 18, that would
Right.
change the analysis.
absolutely, yes,
If it was
yes,
back even more, correct?
yes, it
Okay,
would.
All right. All right, now moving on to path 2. Can you see that all right there, sir?
Yes, yep.
Now, to path 2, may I approach the witness one? To path 2, the direction was upward from the interior to the exterior, correct?
That is correct.
And from the area somewhere in the front of the vehicle to the back, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, that's a pretty severe angle, correct?
Yes,
And on that arrow, if you'll use the laser pointer, from the beginning of that arrow at the lowest point, okay, if you'll start there, you don't know if the gun was lower than that, right?
this will terminate down out below the steering wheel.
So the gun can be anywhere from where you just put it in the middle of the door, right?
Yes, it can be anywhere along this flight path.
But it can't be outside outside the door.
No, not for this
Okay.
flight path.
And so on this one, in hypothetically, if I'm I'm the driver's, in the driver's seat, so if I take a weapon with my left hand and I fire it like that from the driver's seat, that could produce that, correct?
That could, yes,
Okay, because that would match an upward trajectory
yes,
from the front driver's seat back, right?
yes.
On the same type of trajectory as that.
It's possible, yes.
You're not saying that happened, but it's possible that that happened.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Now going to flight path 3, ballistic event 3, you call it, right? Flight
It
path.
would be flight path 3.
Okay. Now, in this situation, sir, may I approach the witness, Your Honor? Again, this one was, the direction was area from the front downward and rearward towards the trunk, correct?
Yes,
Okay. So in this situation, the shot actually goes this way. You can't tell where it starts, correct?
if we could see the lower portion, you'd be able to see the horizontal component.
Oh, I'll put the lower one, I'm sorry. Is that better?
So yes, that does better illustrate what you're saying, is it could.
So the weapon could be anywhere along that continual line?
That is
Is
correct.
basically what you're saying, correct?
Yes,
And that, you believe, is the one that was found in the trunk?
yes,
Okay.
yes.
And you don't know where the one that was found on the seat, okay? You remember there was a bullet, a projectile found on the seat,
Yes,
and you don't know where that came from?
I don't. No.
Okay. But this one you can trace back to there, correct?
Yes, this one, again, we can realistically assume that this is the one that was recovered from the Tupperware container in the trunk.
And there's no signs of stippling or soot on any object in the car at that point in time, correct?
That's
That-
correct.
That could give you a starting point for that.
That's correct.
So in theory, the gun could have been 2 or 3 feet from the back of where it entered, the back right, correct?
Could you say that one more time?
Okay, so you have your things, right?
The flight paths?
The flight path.
Yes.
And it goes back to the back tire. Is that the one that was taken out of the tire?
No, not this one.
Okay.
This is the trunk.
The trunk,
Yeah.
okay. So that all along, the weapon could be all along that line, correct?
Yes, it could be anywhere along this line, from where it terminates here to the headrest to, yeah, the bullet hole in the armrest.
You believe it terminates there, correct? But in fact, it could be actually, if someone was above the headrest or down or something like that, it could be a possibility, correct? You're saying you believe the weapon was on the other side of the headrest there?
Because of the absence of bullet holes in this headrest, yes.
And you don't believe that the bullet holes that you've seen were caused by, in fact, this one? There were bullet holes in the headrest, correct?
No, there are bullet holes in the side of the seat.
Correct.
That is not associated with this flight path.
That's what you don't believe, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then flight path 4. Can you see both of them there, Agent?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yep.
So in flight path 4, my approach to witness, oh, thank you, sorry.
Okay.
On flight path 4, you indicate the direction was downward from the interior to the exterior.
Yes.
Okay, so this is the one that went back to the behind the driver's seat rear tire.
Yes.
And this angle comes this way, correct?
Yes.
So the gun had to be an angle facing because there's nothing, no obstruction in the way, correct?
That is correct.
No soot or anything or vapors associated with that.
That's
That
correct.
one, correct? And so that goes all the way through, correct?
Yes, it
Okay.
perforates, yeah.
So so the weapon had to be facing this way and going down there. Now, the weapon could be over here going down there, right?
Yes.
Over here going down there, right? Or it could be over here going down there, correct?
Again, I only talk about the gun. I don't know about the person.
You don't know where the person is.
That's correct.
And I think you told Mr. Kidd, you don't know where the person is because if someone in the car is moving, that could change the whole analysis.
Well, people can hold guns in a lot of different ways.
Right.
The gun could be over here, but my body's over here.
Absolutely,
So-
could be in left hand, right hand.
That's why we don't talk about shooter position.
And also the person that they're shooting at could be in different positions, correct?
That is true.
And they're moving from, could be from the front of the vehicle to the back of the vehicle, from one side to the other, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I'm done with that, Lawrence. Thank you. Thank you. And I think when I read your report, Agent Durst, you indicated that the gun jam, you've never seen that before, but you were pretty certain it couldn't have happened on purpose.
Yeah, that's what everybody feels that I consulted with. It couldn't have been staged.
I just want to know what you feel, sir, not everybody.
No, I don't feel it could be either.
Okay. You don't feel someone could do it on purpose?
I don't think it was staged.
Okay, exactly. All right. May I have a moment, Your Honor? Agent Durst, I appreciate you being here today. That's all the questions I have for you right now.
Thank you. Yep.
Any redirect?
I just want to make clear, your report is dated January 23rd, 2019, right?
Can I look? All right, yes.
So if there was any other information in this case, whether it's statements by people, parties, witnesses, or any other workings of videos, that would not be part of your report or not within your knowledge, is that right?
That's correct.
That's all I have, Judge.
All right, you can step down.
Thank you, Judge.
You want to bring all your items.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you. Council want to approach?
All right. We'll let you go. Thanks.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take about a 10-minute break. And hold on. We got to set up everything for the next witness. Do not discuss this case among yourselves. Do not permit anyone to discuss it with you or in your presence. It is your duty not to form and express an opinion on the case until it is finally submitted to you. You doing all right? About 10 minutes. What, do you want, yeah, do you wanna do it, or you want me to get, Linda?
Rachel, Rachel, you can hang out here.
It's a bond here.
That'll be.
Okay. Here's it, right here. It'll be 2 cases. Do you have, here, you can have my doc, you can have my doc. Here's my docket. And also,
I'm sorry?
and also 22 CR. Here, you can just have this.
Okay. You don't need this one?
No, this is the one I had back in my office.
Okay, all right.
I needed to get the case numbers myself, but everyone could have a seat.
Jumpy.
So we're just addressing cases that happened to young today. Oh, perfect, okay. Let's see, we can't wait to have too much. Yeah, I'm fine with that. And then we don't need to continue this, right?
Because it's set.
Next week.
Yep.
Can you send me the processing sheets on these two? 22 CR 1205.
So he was in, you said Hopewell Treatment Center,
Hopewell is the one he had said, and that's where I saw, hold up the other,
and that was during, when he missed the surgery.
believe so. But I'm gonna try and get confirmation of that.
Okay. Oh, there you go. Okay. Right. Right, and it sounds like you want to go straight from there to Hopewell.
Yeah, this.
Right. For sure. When was the FT, when's the oldest witness? 7/19. Okay. Yes, it's entirely possible. It's also entirely possible you never got notice of the court date. I'll make sure that relay all that. Okay.
Fingers tired today from typing? The wrist. Busy bee. Yeah. I bet. I bet. Yeah.
Tammy's mad that I go too slow on my pleas.
I've seen slower, don't worry, Judge.
That is true.
No. Yeah, everybody is. I think there's like, what, 6 trials happening right now?
Is that right?
I think so.
And I just saw a bunch of jurors lined up on 4 for, I think, a civil trial in a magistrate's court
My goodness.
on Thursday. Like, right. He's got a co-defendant one.
Miller, Page, Fry, Young.
And then
There's more.
the Houston case.
Well, yeah, that's still happening. And then there was,
I didn't know Paige was in trial.
they were, at least Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I don't know if they've wrapped up or
Wow.
not.
I'm so out of it. I didn't know about any of these trials besides this one. But,
I try to keep. In my spare time, I would love to watch.
right, yeah.
But-
I do like the live streams. You can put on the
Yeah.
background.
Busy place this week.
Yeah. Surprised we got that many judges for all these trials. Seen the basement.
Yeah.
I hate when people are in the basement. It takes them so long to
I
get them
know.
up here.
Sorry. It was funny because the deputies were outside and then they had to haul that out.
Mhm.
So to get to the basement, I had to go to another floor, go through that courtroom to get to another, just to get to the basement and then, yeah. It's fun. But it's not as bad as when the one elevator back there was out. I was so lost. I'm like, I don't even know. You want me to walk outside and get, like, I was so confused. But we figured it out. We made it through. It was fun.
When I was a muni judge, I used to go in the jail and take pleas.
Did you?
Because this one guy was so obese that his pants kept falling off. I was like, I'll just go do it
Go back there.
down on the gallows.
That's a smell you'll never forget. Burn in your memory the rest of your life. That and the pike.
But Rick Pfeiffer was a judge. He's the one that taught me that. He would always
Yeah.
go down.
That's so convenient and helpful. Yeah. Sorry, guys. Yeah. I got excited for a second. Doors. Well, you saw me jump when cable.
I know why you said.
I don't know. Lack of sleep.
On the lunch hour, there's a plea on a, law, it's got like, civics, forfeiture, and all that stuff, so just wanted to give you a heads
Okay.
up. If you're on there, it is 204093.
What is it? 20?
20 CR 4093.
4093, and his name's Glenn Walker.
Yes, it was actually set yesterday,
Okay.
so they just hit it today.
Right.
I believe he's going.
Okay.
Right. I know, that's.
hate that.
Yeah, I'm with you. That's not cool. No, I'm happy to do that.
I appreciate it.
Does he have a record? Yeah. He's had some stupid.
Let me check if I
I'm
might.
just wondering why the author was up there.
Because it always, no, I'm not gonna say. It's been fun thus far, my experience with her. Okay.
Ready?
Just gonna stand right here.
Next will be two matters. First one, 20 CR 5741, also 22 CR 1205, both State of Ohio versus Bradley Mance. Counsel, under your appearances.
Thank you, Your Honor. Corey Helfrich on behalf of the state.
Thank you, Your Honor. Rachel Craig on behalf of Mr. Mance to my left.
We're here on a bond hearing on each of these matters. Anything further on behalf of the defense?
Your Honor, I would just reiterate the arguments that were provided in chambers. We're asking for recognizance bonds on both of these cases. He does have a court date coming up on the 18th. And again, he's got transportation, he's got a location he can stay, he's got ties to the community, should not be considered a flight risk. We're asking for recognizance bonds.
Anything on behalf of the state?
Nothing other than what we discussed in chambers.
What I'm going to do on each of these matters, Mr. Mance, I'm going to modify the bond to a $5,000 reporting recognizant bond with direct telephone reporting, given that he lives in Jackson. So, anything further on behalf of the state?
No, thank
Anything further on behalf of the defense? No, thank you. That'll be all.
All right, thanks, Rachel.
Thank you so much, appreciate it.
Yep, not a problem. Thank you, Judge. Thanks, Melissa.
Thank you.
You guys ready?
Yeah, just had to, we were gonna wait till Rachel came back out.
Okay.
No, I'll have to do
Tell her to get out right now.
Yeah, no, we'll wait to start before, we'll wait till Rachel leaves.
Tell her to leave. Seriously.
I'm saying, I don't think they have enough deputies to, because she's still talking to him. That's, yeah, I think it's just him.
I don't want to wait for the deputies to take that guy down.
Oh, no, yeah. I think that, oh, yeah, I understand.
Is ready?
Yeah, they're unlocking the
Melissa, can you give me the screen for just a second?
Still haven't found my chair.
Can I have a little desk space? Do you mind if I put stuff over here? Yeah?
Back on the record, 19 CR 1662, State of Ohio versus Andrew Mitchell. Is there anything we need to put on the record prior to bringing in the jury?
I don't think so, Judge. No, Your Honor.
Good jury.
These are just so I know what's what. 19.
can have a seat. Any further witnesses on behalf of the state of Ohio?
Yes, Your Honor, state we call David Loomis. Right on up this way, curve all the way around and kind of join next to the
A
judge.
little maze here. Follow around. You can raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury your testimony in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Have a seat. Pull yourself up close to the microphone, and you may inquire.
Thank you, Your Honor. Would you go ahead and tell the jury who you are and what you do, please?
My name is David Loomis. I work for the Ohio Organized Crime Investigations Commission, which is a section of the Ohio Attorney General's office, and I'm the Senior Forensic Audio Video Analyst.
The Ohio Attorney General is a state agency,
Yes,
correct?
that's correct.
You help agencies throughout the state of Ohio, would that be accurate?
That's correct. I help all sorts of law enforcement agencies and prosecutors' offices across the state.
And what specifically do you do there?
We clarify audio and video and still images, and we also create demonstratives for court.
How long have you been doing that?
About 7.5 years. It'll be 8 years in August.
And what sort of training or education have you had prior to that to qualify you for that role?
I have a bachelor's degree in media arts and animation. The media arts side deals with audio and video production. And I also have over 100 hours of training through the Law Enforcement and Emergency Services Video Association with a technician certification.
And is that abbreviated as LEVA commonly?
Yes, that's correct.
Tell us a little bit about that LEVA certification and training.
They take us through, my education, my formal education deals with what we normally see in Hollywood or in TV production or in animation. LEVA teaches us the forensic side of the field and how to ensure that everything that we work on is applicable to court.
And you said you had 120 hours of training?
Over 100, I don't remember the exact number.
Are there certain levels of training that you acquire throughout that certification process?
Yes, level 1 and level 2 will earn you the technician certification, which I have, and then you're required to do additional classes, and level 3 and level 4 for the analyst certification. I've completed level 3 and level 4, but haven't gone in front of the board for the official certification for analyst yet.
So you completed all the levels. You have one final step to have done everything possible with that certification. Is that accurate?
That's correct.
All right. And is that the sort of training that is available to all forensic video analysts throughout the state of Ohio?
Yes, and the country and the world as well. They teach internationally as well.
That's the standard then?
Yes.
In addition to that, are you required to, or have you testified in court regarding forensic video analysis?
Yes, I have.
About how many times have you testified and in what sorts of hearings?
I've testified about 15 times. I don't know the exact number. I've testified related to video and audio and authenticity.
So just generally speaking, an agency can come to you and say, we need you to do something with video, audio, or both. Would that be accurate?
Yes, that's correct.
And this is what you do every day, all day?
Yes, that's correct.
And do you work with the team?
We currently have 3 analysts in the lab. At one point we had 4, and at one point we were down to just me. But at this point we have 3 analysts in the lab.
So your full-time duties is analyzing various audio and video
Yes.
pieces. Does that include body cam footage as well?
Yes, absolutely.
So you said you've testified before, and that is in the area of forensic video analysis.
Yes.
So were we talking about you testifying that some video is accurate or hasn't been tampered with, or what sorts of things do you testify about?
Often we're brought in to explain actually the limitations of video. Sometimes people expect to see what you might see in Hollywood, and we're often dealing with surveillance video, which is of a much lower quality than you might see on TV or film. So we come in to explain sometimes what you can't see. Also, if we,
Can you keep your voice up a little bit, please?
oh, sorry.
Thank you.
If we create a demonstrative for the court, we may be called to come and explain how we created that demonstrative and the process that entails, and just answer any questions that the court may have regarding the video that we worked on.
And you have prepared a CV for us here, outlining all of your training experience, cases you've testified in. Is this fairly up-to-date as far as you know?
Yes.
All right. I've marked this as States Exhibit E1. If I could approach, Hannah.
Okay?
I'm going to show you E1. Does that appear to be your curriculum today?
Yes, this is my CV.
So that outlines all of your experience, your training, cases you testified in, and how it is that you come to be an expert in forensic video analysis.
That's correct. The cases where I've testified, I've just listed the cases where I've been qualified by the court as an expert.
So you have been so qualified.
Yes.
Very good. In this case, well, let's start with the first request. Were you requested in September 2018 to take a look at a building video by the Columbus Police Department, specifically Greg Shepard?
Yes, I was.
And what was it you were asked to do?
The request was to take a look at the video and see if there was any way to get a clearer picture of what was going on within a vehicle that appears on the video.
So how does this work? He comes to you and says, I have this. What happens?
He submits it through our agency, fills out a submission form, hands over his evidence, usually on a CD, DVD, or thumb drive. And from then on, it's taken over to my custody, and I go work on it in our lab, take a look at the video, and try to determine what can be done, if anything, with the video.
So you tell him if you can do something with it or not, right?
Usually when I'm finished with it is usually when I let them know what I was able to do or not able to do with the video.
I'm going to approach you with Exhibit E3. Thank you. And V1. Tell us what E3 is, please.
This is one of our lab's chain of custody reports.
So does that tell you when the piece of evidence comes into you for your review, and then when you check it in and out?
Yes, it does.
So that makes sure that no one else is looking at it, tampering with it, you know who's touched it, is that right?
That's correct.
States Exhibit V1. Tell me if you recognize that. You can open, review, whatever you need to do there.
I believe this is the original evidence that was submitted to me containing the video.
Building video?
I'm sorry?
Would that be the building video
Yes,
from Detective Shepard?
yes.
And so when you initially get something like that, what's the first thing you do? To take a look and see if there's something you can do and make sure that there's no compromised integrity, I guess?
What we do is, the first thing we do is I'll pull out that little flash drive and I'll just examine it visually, make sure there's no damage to it. With a flash drive, we connect it to a computer with a write blocker, which ensures that nothing can be written to the drive, so nothing on the drive ever changes. At that point, we make an exact working copy of the video locally, so that we never, so the original is always maintained, and we work off the working copy. When we create that copy, we use what's called a hash algorithm. In this case, it was a SHA-1 hash, which it's like a digital fingerprint. It'll copy over the file, copy the file over to our local drive. It'll run the hash algorithm. It'll give a series of letters and numbers, and then it'll run that same algorithm on the local copy. And if the two hash values match, then we know we're working on an exact duplicate of what we've been given.
So you make an exact copy so you can work with it?
That's correct.
And you did that in this case?
That's correct.
And then what did you do?
Then the first thing I do is I just review the video to see what it contains.
All right. And you were asked to, I guess, see if you could enhance it or make it more visible, I guess, in some way?
Yes.
Right? What did you do to try to figure out whether you could accomplish that task?
We primarily use Adobe Premiere, which is a video analyst tool. It's also used for video editing. Again, we're using just forensically sound filters when we pull it into Adobe Premiere. So I'll review it. I'll look at how much contrast I can get out of it, whether or not it can be sharpened, see if there's anything that can bring out any detail in the video. This particular video is of pretty poor quality. We see a lot of video of this quality in our field. There wasn't a whole lot that could be done with this one. As far as clarification goes, I was able to brighten it just a little bit. I did create a region of interest that enlarges the area that we were concentrating on, that he wanted to look at. You should know that enlarging that doesn't bring out any detail. That's not actually an enhancement. It just makes it bigger. It makes it easier if you're showing it on the screen in court. It takes up a larger portion of the screen. Also, the way that I do it when I enlarge something is I draw a red box around it, and then so that you can see which region has been enlarged. But that also gives you the enlargement and the original size video on the same screen. So if there's any question between differences between the two, you can see that.
Okay, and to what percentage did you enlarge this?
400% for this particular case.
And you said put a red box on it, and then you copy to a disk and give it back to Detective Shepard?
Yes, that's correct.
Right. If I can approach with States Exhibit V2 and E2, V as in Victor, E as in egg. Exhibit V2, do you recognize that?
Yes, this is the work product.
That's the 400% enhanced
Yes, that's correct.
video then. Very good. And E2, did you prepare a report regarding what you did with respect to that building video?
Yes, I did.
And that is contained in that document?
That is correct.
And then that's given to Detective Shepard?
That's correct.
And that work was done 2018? I'm sorry, I just gave you the document. You completed that in when, 2018? What date, please?
Looks like it was submitted on September 18th and completed on September 21st.
Of 2018?
That's correct.
Very good. Were you then asked to do some additional work with respect to this case?
Yes, I was.
And at whose request was that?
That was at your request.
Not Columbus Police Department, correct?
That's correct.
What was it you were requested to do by my office?
You said that you had some audio pertaining to the case and requested that I synchronize that audio with the video that I already had.
So you didn't have audio in your possession before I made you aware of it. Would that be accurate?
That's correct. I was not aware of any audio at the initial submission.
And that request by me was made when?
I don't remember the exact date. I think it was a few months later.
Right. If I could approach you with States Exhibit E4, would you have listed on a report when that request was made?
Yes.
All right. I'm going to show you States Exhibit E4.
So that was March 7th of 2019.
So 2019, you were asked to marry or sync the two, if possible. Is that right?
That's correct.
And in order to do that, were you provided with audio and video?
Yes, I was. I was provided with the audio that you mentioned, as well as a copy of the original work product that I created, which I already had, so I ended up not needing that for the synchronization.
I'm going to show you States Exhibit W. You would tell me that appears to be the audio that you were provided.
Yes, this is the disc containing the audio I was provided.
So you're given this request by my office to see if you can do that. What's your response at that time?
My response at that time is, I have done this. I've done it several times for several agencies. Sometimes it can be a complex issue. Sometimes it's a very simple issue. So I believe I let you know that I had to be certain that I was able to synchronize it. I had to look it over and make sure there were points that could be synced between the audio and video. And I said if I wasn't able to do that, I would let you know that it can't be done. And if I was able to do it, then I would go ahead and do it.
Very good. And in fact, you did end up doing it in this case, yes?
Yes, I did. It ended up being pretty straightforward.
Let's back up a little bit. So when you're provided the audio, State's Exhibit W, do you do some sort of review to make sure that the disc, the sound, whatever technical terms you may want to use, that everything is, intact and the integrity is not compromised?
Yes, I mean, I didn't see anything unusual with it. Again, we went through the same process that we do with everything else. We work on a working copy, examine it, make sure everything works as it should.
Okay. Do you review both video and audio to make sure there's no skips, there's no loss of information, things like that?
Yes, in this case I did, yes.
How do you do that?
We have a couple of tools that we can use to look at the video frame by frame. And we can look at the data within the video itself. We can look at in this case, there was a burned-in timestamp in the video. There weren't any gaps in time. The video played at a constant speed, and the audio audio tends to be more accurate than video in most cases. In this case, they were both, played at a constant speed. The audio, it's a 48 kilohertz file, which is generally 48,000 samples per second for the audio, so the audio is very accurate.
And I don't want to get bogged down too much in technical details, but when you're looking at these things, are you using a program and looking at some underlying data or sound waves or things like that to decide whether or not there's any problems or any gaps or missing information?
Yes, I mean, we have a visual representation of the audio sound wave, and also we have an audio spectrogram we can look at as well, and everything looked good. We have some software that can look at the metadata within the files, and I didn't see anything unusual within the metadata.
So this is scientific. This isn't just you looking and saying, that looks pretty good to me, right?
Correct.
And if you felt that there was missing information or gaps or jumps or something here, would you have called our attention to it in your report?
Yes, I would have called attention to it, and I would have told you verbally, hey, I was able to sync it, but we saw an issue here, we saw an issue there.
You don't know anybody associated with this case, right?
No.
You're here just to tell us what you did. Would that be accurate?
Yes, that's correct, and I can be called by either side.
So tell us a little bit about, you said you needed to make sure that you could find these points and be able to sync or marry these two. Explain to the jury what you did physically, what you're looking for.
Okay, so I was provided with a loose transcript of some of the audio as well as I listened to it, and you need a minimum of 1 point to synchronize audio and video. I personally won't do it with less than 2 because I want to ensure that it stays in sync over time, because I don't want to say, hey, it's synchronized at this single point. I want to say it's synchronized throughout the file. So I'm able to identify moments in the audio and then try to see if I can find a visual representation of that in the video, which will give me a point of synchronization between the two. The initial point of synchronization was the sound of, I believe there's a gurney and wheels hit the ground, which is very easy to see in the video and easy to hear in the audio. So that was the initial synchronization point. The software that we use allows us to see, on the waveform exactly where you hear that sound of the wheel hitting the ground, as well as seeing it in the video itself. So I'm able to align it that way. Once that was aligned, then there was another point. I believe there were 7 points total, but there was another point where the gurney was making noise, and it was easy to see it as well. So that gave me my initial 2 points, but they were fairly close together. Then I went back through the audio once those were synced to ensure that other events appeared to line up as they should, and they did.
And do you recall, or did you put in your report at least some of the other events that you found as your, I guess, your sync points, for lack of a better word?
Yes, I did.
I believe you have that in front of you. If you would just describe for us what some of those points were.
That's the initial points. I have the movement of the gurney at 11:49:06, 11:49:08, 11:50:00, and 11:50:02. Those were the initial synchronization points. And then when I went back through, I had at 11:36:50, there's a vehicle door opening, and subsequent change in ambient noise is how I worded it in my report. The recording device is within the car, and when the car door opens, you can now hear some of the outside sounds. So that made it a easy event to identify. At 11:38:09, there's an individual that kind of slides along the edge of the car and hits the ground, and you can hear that in the audio as well, and that lined up. At 11:40:29, there's another car on the scene, and you can hear the door close. This one's a little harder to see, but you can see it. When the door closes, there's a shadow, because it's at the very top of the screen. You can see the shadow of when the door closes, and that aligned as well.
And after you found these points, did you review it multiple times?
Align the.
Did you review the video
review it
multiple times to verify?
Yes, yes.
Would it be obvious to you? I mean, might you miss it? Would it be obvious to you if it didn't align as you're looking back through that? If something was amiss, did you have the ability to be able to pick up on that?
Yes, like if there were an obvious event that you would expect to make a sound, and there wasn't a sound associated with it at that time, that would obviously be a red flag, or vice versa. If we, heard something and there was nothing visible that you expect to see, I would bring that up and say, hey, this might not be in sync.
Right. And so we have two different sources, but when we have 10 seconds of audio and 10 seconds of video, I mean, those are both still 10 seconds, right?
Yes, that's correct.
If you were unable to feel confident in this sync, would you have told me so?
Absolutely, and I have had that happen in the past where I've been asked to sync audio and video, and I couldn't find synchronization points, and I said, I'm sorry, we cannot do this.
Have you in the past, and are you willing to talk to other experts, defense team, investigators about your work?
Yes, absolutely. That's part of our job and our code of ethics.
And did anybody besides my office talk to you about this work?
No, they have not.
Are you aware that after you prepared your report, that an expert witness by the name of Jamie Borden also reviewed your work?
Yes, you informed me of that.
Are your findings here based upon a reasonable degree of scientific certainty, the match that you did?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
That was a terrible question, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
Your finding, your end result here, that work that you did.
Can we approach?
the work that you've done here, the end product, that synced video, is that something prepared within a reasonable degree of scientific certainty or within accepted standards in your forensic community?
Same objection, Your Honor.
Overruled. You can answer.
I mean, I couldn't give you an exact percentage, but I can say that it's the audio and the video are synchronized.
Very good. I'm going to ask, Your Honor, that we play, and I'm going to ask you, Mr. Loomis, to point out for us, and we'll try to stop at the appropriate times, where you found those synchronization points, okay?
Okay.
If we pause for a moment here, let's just talk about really quickly, the red box, that is the enhancement you did in the box you placed?
Yeah, well, that's the region of interest enlarged, again, so it's easier to see on a presentation screen. The enlargement itself is not an enhancement, it just makes things bigger so that it's easier to see, say, from the jury box.
Just for the record, this is State's Exhibit V3 being shown. Let me just stop for a moment. So you watched this beginning to end to check for points. If somebody may have like walked across or something and there was sound as soon as this happened, you would have noted that, right?
Oh, that's correct, I believe, yeah.
And you don't have any sync points up to this point, is that accurate?
That's correct, and even at this point, there isn't anything particularly distinct, as far as synchronization goes.
But in doing that job, you had to go complete start to finish.
Yes, that's correct.
To you, it's gonna cut.
No, I'm not giving any handcuffs.
You're being under arrest. If you don't have any warrants, I'll let you go.
Okay, well, I'm gonna have to see some other type of ID about it.
I just showed you my ID. I don't have my badge on. I'm calling my buddy.
You're gonna have to do that. I'm not doing all of that. I'm gonna hold myself. This is Yale.
Yeah.
Um. I know how the whole body situation works.
No radio.
I've never had any of this happen like this bill, so
Why? Because I don't have my badge that I left on my police shirt.
you don't have your badge, you don't have your walkie-talkie,
Yeah, I do.
you don't have any of that.
You can
What is that? There's nothing you can do.
complain.
Municipal court.
Vice.
Right, you get that in the court.
Right. I'm a policeman.
You can get that.
Handcuffs, ID, or what you want.
Can you help me, please?
Help you what?
I'm a police line.
I am the police.
You're not the police. I know you're not. And that's false identification right there. That can get you in a lot of trouble with doing stuff. When he's tracking me in and saying he was a police officer and he's not a police officer.
Yes, I am.
He's acting like he's a police officer. And he's not. He has this in a fake ass badge. Kidnapping women. I've already heard about him and he already is wanted. This cops is just showing the picture, you know that, right?
Yeah, all right.
They've been showing the picture.
Say fuck you.
Don't put your hands on me. Don't put your hands on me. Do not put your hands on me. Do not put your hands on me. Don't put your hands on me. Help! Help!
She got a knife.
Help!
Cut me.
Help! Get off of me!
Just cut me.
Help! Help! Help me, please. I'm in the back door. Help me. I'm in the back door. He's trying to cut me. Help me. Get off of me. Please help me. Please help me. Get off!
We're gonna pause there. First of all, up to this point, was there anything that you saw when you did your review that changed your mind as to whether you got this right?
No, I didn't, no.
Is this one of the synchronization points?
Yes, this is the point where the door opens and you can now hear some of the outside sound from the car.
And you also looked at sound waves and things like that while looking at these things, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Did you get additional synchronization points from those series of movements?
You can hear a sound when an object hits the ground, and that lines up as well. It's not one that's in the report, but that's also a synchronization point.
So is it fair to say besides the one you listed, there are still things that you could consider synchronization points?
Yes, these were the primary that I used in the initial synchronization of the video.
And I don't have that copy in front of me anymore, but if you would, what was the next synchronization point you found in this sequence here, if you recall?
The next one was at 11:38:09, and that's when you see someone slide.
Police, 911. Good night.
Is that the one you're referring to, 38, it was 09,
Yes, that's correct.
all right? And what would be the next important synchronization point you found?
The next one is 11:40:29.
I'm the police. Hurry. Don't I'm bleeding bad. She got me. Shit. Fuck. Fuck. I told you I was the police, man. I showed you my ID. She fucking knocked the shit out of me. Bellows and yell. Yeah.
I don't know, but I'm taking my shirt off and I'm wrapping his hand up so the pressure stops. He's cut pretty bad, man. His off hand is wide open. You gotta put pressure on him. Yeah, he's an officer. I don't know who my boss calling. Is that tight enough?
Yes.
Do you need it tighter?
I'm cool.
Okay. He's gonna pass out. Man, he's about to pass out. Come on, y'all got a police officer down. I got him right here. He's right here.
You need to play another second. Did you stop that early? Was this, and I don't know if we stopped a little too early, was there another sync point that you found at this point?
Yes, it's this one again's a little bit harder to hear, a little bit harder to see, but up in the upper right corner of the red box there, you can see a shadow of the car door closing. And there's a door, the audio of a door closing at the same time.
And what was the next point you found?
The next points are all the movement of the gurney later in the video. 11:49:06.
I need a squad bag.
Squad bad, I'm losing blood. Alright. You've got my sweat back. I need 2 squads. I need, multiple cars here. Alright. Where you at? In the handbook. Okay, alright, just take.
Pause right here a minute. You said the next point is not till 49?
Yes, 11:49:06.
Okay, we're gonna try to skip forward to hit that point more closely. Is there anything in between you feel is important that we point out?
No, actually, for most cases, I probably would have ended the presentation here. I kept the additional video and audio just to demonstrate the synchronization points.
We'll pick up at 11:48:52 then. Would this be the points you're talking about regarding the gurney noises and making that a synchronization point?
Yes, that's correct.
She's still showing a pulse. I can follow if you want. Hey, where, you wanna? Three shots here.
Is that another point that you noted?
Yes, it is.
And
And 02
at what point beyond that did you have additional points? Or have we gone through the sequence? I apologize.
that's the full sequence.
Very good. I forgot to show you what's been marked as States Exhibit V3, which is what's a copy of which is pointed there. You would just identify that for me, please.
Yes, this is a thumb drive containing the work product that I created.
I'm sorry.
Yes, this is a thumb drive of the work product that I created.
Very good. We're good with this. Thank you. I have nothing further.
Lights. Any cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor, may I proceed?
You may.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
My name is Mark Collins, and myself and Caitlin Stevens represent Andy Mitchell in this action. First and foremost, Mr. Loomis, I want to thank you for your service in the Air Force. I believe you were in the Air Force, correct?
I was, thank you.
very much for your service. I want to start kind of just on some basic topics, and bear with me, because I do not have your training and education and things of that nature in that field, okay?
Okay.
In general, sir, it's a situation, if I have a device that both has audio and visual, are there potentially any issues in recording something, both audio and visual, from the same device?
From the same device?
Correct.
There can be. In my experience, there are times when that can happen.
And describe for ladies and gentlemen, jury what that is, when you mean there can be some issues.
I think the most common issue we see is sometimes with certain inexpensive cameras or inexpensive surveillance cameras. In particular, you might see a slight out-of-sync audio and video. So a direct example for me might be in an interview room where you see someone speaking and then, you know, the audio of what they're saying is slightly out of sync.
And slightly out of sync's still okay, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Because of the identifying points that you can go through and try to relink and things like that, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And in terms of audio, you reviewed the audio here, you believe that that was seamless, correct?
Yes.
And you reviewed the video, and it's my understanding that the video is 10 frames per second, correct?
The video is actually 15 frames per second.
Okay. And so what does that mean, sir?
I'm sorry?
What does that mean, 15 frames per second?
Well, you're viewing 15 images per second of time. Standard, what you see on your television is around 30 frames per second. This is about 15 frames per second.
Okay, so that means that there is a certain amount of time in between each image, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And so how much time is in between each image if it's 15 frames per second?
I believe 1/15 of a second.
Okay, which is 0.015,
I don't know the exact number.
okay. So, but there's always, with a video, there's always time in between each frame that the naked eye sees, can't see, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And so the naked eye can't pick up that time in there, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And I noticed in some of your information, you did some study and you did I think a seminar with regards to the physics of sound, correct?
Yes, yeah, well, audio analysis and, yeah.
Yeah, and I think the exact title, it was Introduction to Forensic Audio Analysis in September of 15, Science and the Physics of Sound.
Yes, they did, yes. That was a few years ago, they did cover that, yes.
The physics of sound, sound has physics because sound bounces off things, right?
It can, yes.
And sound can be distorted, muffled, but depending on what the environment the sound waves are in, correct?
Yes, it can.
Okay. And so when you're watching on the computer the sound waves, that's what you're looking for, correct?
I'm not looking for distortions, I'm looking for what we can actually hear.
Absolutely, but you're using the sound waves from that.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And in this situation, you're aware that a video, you indicated was very low quality, I think you said, was on the lower end of the quality.
Yes, it is a low-quality video.
And surveillance videos, that tends to happen.
Yes, it does.
And in this situation, were you aware that you didn't get the actual video from a CD that came from the video machine or the video device that was recording it, correct?
I was given whatever Detective Shepard gave me.
Well, Detective Shepard testified to ladies and gentlemen of the jury that he couldn't get it out of that machine, so he had to actually take a video of that and copy it onto another device.
That is,
Overruled if he knows.
that is actually how we extract video from a DVR, is by copying it to another device.
So Detective Shepard had to do that first. You didn't have the actual the video, you didn't have the video machine or VCR or what have you.
No, I did not extract the video in this case.
So that gets extracted by Detective Shepard onto a device,
Yes.
and then that gets provided to the prosecutor.
I believe it came to me first.
Okay, came to you first, and that's September of 18.
Yes.
Okay, and based on that, you said, it's low quality, but I can enhance it, correct? Enlarge it.
I'm sorry?
Enlarge it, not enhance.
Enlarge it, I did brighten it a little bit,
Okay.
which is, I mean, it's a minor adjustment. It's not a whole lot.
And you enlarge it by the 400%.
Yes, that's correct.
But that doesn't help you see it any better, correct?
No, it doesn't. It just makes it larger for the screen for demonstrative purposes.
And different recording devices, Mr. Loomis, they're designed to pick up a higher level or more sensitive. They can be very sensitive or not so sensitive in terms of what the device picks up, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And so one person's cell phone may be able to pick up audio better than another person's cell phone.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And in those types of situations, again, that's a second source, correct?
Yes, that's
And on the physics of sound, sound travels at what, 100, how fast does sound travel?
I believe it's about 750 miles per hour.
Okay, and how about light?
186,282 miles per second.
They travel at different things, and that's why the issues occur, correct?
I wouldn't say that would necessarily pertain in this case.
I'm not saying it is. I'm not,
Okay.
I'm just asking you that two different things travel at two different speeds.
I would agree that they travel at different speeds.
Absolutely. And in this situation, if you placed a recording device in an environment and a human ear, probably not going to get the same results, correct, of what was heard, correct?
There might be a slight difference, yes.
Okay. And depending on if there's a trauma to the ear area or trauma to the human ear or other distractions to the person, individual or person, that may affect what a human hears, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
So you're not testifying in this case beyond a reasonable degree of scientific certainty that my client heard what the individual was saying while the shots were going on, correct?
Correct.
You have no opinion to that as whatsoever, correct?
That's correct.
And you watched that video, correct?
Yes.
You're not here testifying within a reasonable degree of scientific certainty that you could see anything in that video inside the car, correct?
That's correct.
You couldn't see anything of what occurred in there, correct?
You can see general movement.
Basic movement, and no specifics, correct?
Correct.
And you're not here to testify in any reasonable degree of scientific certainty about what facts occurred and when they occurred, because you don't know the facts, correct?
That is not my lane of experience, no.
Okay, you weren't provided with any of that information, correct?
That's correct.
You were asked to take one thing, take another, and try to sync it up. Try to enlarge one thing, try to sync it up, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And you did the best job that you could, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, may I have a moment, Your Honor? Mr. Loomis, thank you again for your service and thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Any redirect? All right, Mr. Lewis, step down. Leave everything else up there, yeah, just leave it up there. Councilwoman approach. Off the record. Yeah.
There's the laser pointer still up.
Any further witnesses on behalf of the state?
The state meeting board.
You guys all doing all right? Make it to lunch? All right.
Can we approach, Judge?
was telling the lawyers, they whisper over here, and you guys can't hear it. I'm like, just talk normally.
All right.
Sir, if you want to come around this little maze, as we're even got seat number right over here. See, I told you I need to put that yellow tape on the ground.
Yellow brick road.
Raise your right hand. You solemnly swear affirm under penalty of perjury your testimony in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do, sir.
Have a seat. Pull yourself up close to the microphone. And you may inquire.
Thank you, Your Honor. Would you please introduce yourself to the jury and tell them what you do?
Good morning. My name is Jamie Borden. I'm a retired sergeant from the Henderson Police Department out of the Las Vegas area, Nevada. Currently lecturing and doing consultant work in law enforcement.
Let's start kind of at the beginning of your history. You were a law enforcement officer
That's correct.
for how many years?
I was a law enforcement officer. I've been post-certified since 1997 with a small break in between. Still currently post-certified, however, retired and happy about that. And Counsel, would you like me to go into what I did at the department?
Please let us know what your duties and your positions were within the department.
Started out in patrol. I worked patrol for a good while, became a field training officer, then promoted into the Detective Bureau, where I was narcotics officer, vice officer for a short time. Took a break, then I came back and was back in patrol for a period of time, then promoted into the Training Bureau with OIC. I promoted into the Training Bureau as an officer in charge and became eventually the commander over that unit as a sergeant. I was in charge of all training for the entire department, a department of approximately 500 at the time, and was primarily responsible for the development of the use of force training and analysis unit, which was the investigative entity that looked at all use of force on the department. I held that position until I retired in 2018. I was also a sergeant over patrol squads in a relief capacity, staying involved in the patrol environment as a supervisor. And I did that from approximately 2011 until 2018 when I finally retired.
And then what did you do upon retirement?
Before I retired, I'd started a company, my own company called Critical Incident Review, and I was doing consultant work for departments around the country, and had also been very immersed in human factors education, subject matter regarding human performance, police performance, training, things of that nature. I was certified by an entity called the Force Science Institute. They are responsible for conducting research on human factors, human error, decision-making, things of that nature. I was certified with them. Then I became the first advanced specialist under their umbrella, and they hired me to lecture for them in 2013 while I was still employed. I was a senior lead instructor for them for about 9 years, lecturing all over the country in human performance, police performance, decision-making, all in critical incident, biomechanics, and the things that happen to the human body under critical stress, and teaching that to departments all over the country, municipalities, sheriff's departments, FBI, the DEA, the DOJ, all the three-letter acronyms, Homeland Security. And I did that up until 2019 when I began teaching under my own company's umbrella, where I have my own certification course now. It's called the Enhanced Force Investigation Course. I also have expertise in video review and examination, so I do that as a consultant. I also teach that, and that brings us to where we're at today, at this point.
You talked about having these various trainings, force science, things like that. Are these, I guess, agencies, or are these some sort of offerings that are available nationwide?
Yes, so the company, the Force Science Institute, my company, offer trainings to departments nationwide. With the Force Science Institute, I believe I had my hands on about 12,000 officers in this country, from Anchorage, Alaska, all the way to Delaware. I've taught in all 50 states. And my company, which is a little bit newer now, I've had classes in probably 10 states and had my hands on approximately 5,000 to 7,000 officers nationwide.
And what do you mean when you have your hands on them? Are you training them? Are you observing? What is it you're doing?
So, yeah, hands-on. I'm lecturing and training, providing training for officers in the realm of use of force decision-making, investigations, everything that ties in. Our students are law enforcement officers primarily. I also teach attorneys, psychologists, anyone who's engaged in law enforcement who is looking to understand the human factor aspect of decision-making under critical stress.
And you've mentioned Force Science and the Force Science Institute. Is this more of a scientific study? You're using things like performance and words like that. Please explain.
Yeah, it's scientific principles that have been studied, and empirical data exists that talks about human performance. How long does it take us to perceive something? How much can we focus on at one time? Different things of that nature. And a lot of it has to do with human performance in terms of timing. How much can we accomplish in what amount of time? What can we perceive, and how long does it take us to perceive it? What do we identify as truth and what is actually fact because of the way the cognitive systems work in our brain? All of that related to law enforcement has a basic scientific foundation, and that's what I teach.
And is a lot of that based on just observation of officer decision-making under either maybe controlled or actual circumstances?
Are you referring to the studies, the empirical data?
Yes.
Yeah, so the studies are